They say wisdom comes with age. What they don't tell you is how quickly the world mistakes wisdom for weakness, how swiftly your own children transform from those who need protection into those who believe they must protect you. I stood at my kitchen window, watching the golden afternoon light cast long shadows across my garden, while behind me, in hushed voices, my children plotted to take away my independence. The word dementia floated between them like a sentence already passed. The words assisted living dropped like stones into still water. They thought I couldn't hear them. They believed I didn't understand. But there are secrets in this house they couldn't begin to imagine. There's a gun in my purse that fires truer than their assumptions. There's a man they cannot see who manages the fortune they don't believe exists. And soon, very soon, they'll learn that underestimating an old woman might be the most dangerous mistake they've ever made. Some storms announce themselves with distant thunder. Others arrive without warning, in the stillness of a perfect Sunday dinner. Eleanor Thompson stood in her shooting stance, legs slightly apart, both hands firmly gripping her Glock 19. The indoor range echoed with the controlled rhythm of her shots, each one finding its mark on the silhouette target 25 yards away. 6 shots, 6 perfect hits clustered tightly in the center mass. "Damn, Ellie," remarked Bill Hayes, the 70-year-old retired police officer who ran the Oak Ridge Shooting Club. "If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe a 64-year-old former English teacher could shoot like that." Ellie lowered her weapon, following proper safety protocol before removing her ear protection. Her silver hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and despite her age, her hands were steady and her eyes sharp. "My James always said everyone should know how to protect themselves," she replied with a small smile, thinking of her late husband. 3 years since he's been gone, and I still hear his voice in my head. Bill nodded respectfully. He was right about that. Not many ladies your age keep up with range practice, though. Ellie began cleaning her firearm with practiced efficiency. Most ladies my age aren't widows living alone with children who think they need to be put in a nursing home. Bill's eyebrows shot up. "Those kids of yours still giving you trouble. Family dinner tonight," Ellie sighed. "I love them dearly, but they look at me like I'm one forgotten pill away from complete senility." "Want me to come over and show them your target sheets?" Bill offered with a wink. Ellie laughed as she packed her gun case. "Thanks, but I have a feeling tonight's going to be complicated enough without bringing firearms into the conversation." The aroma of pot roast filled Ellie's colonial-style home on Maple Avenue, the same home where she and James had raised their 4 children, hosted countless holiday gatherings, and built a life together over 37 years of marriage. Now it was just her, rattling around in rooms full of memories, determined to maintain her independence despite her children's increasing concerns. The doorbell rang at precisely 5:30 p.m. Patricia was always punctual, a trait she claimed came from her legal training, but that Ellie knew had been present since childhood. "Mom," Patricia greeted her with a quick kiss on the cheek, her designer pantsuit still crisp despite a full day at her law firm. At 51, Patricia was the spitting image of Ellie in her younger years, except for the perpetual furrow between her brows that came from years of courtroom battles. "The house looks mostly clean. Have you been managing okay?" And there it was, the first subtle indication that Patricia saw her mother as a problem to be managed rather than a person to be respected. "I've been managing just fine for 64 years. Patricia," Ellie replied with practiced patience, "the pot roast is almost ready. Would you like a glass of wine?" Before Patricia could answer, the back door opened, and Elizabeth Lizzie to the family rushed in with her 8-year-old twins, Emma and Ethan. "Mom, sorry we're late," Lizzie called out, her handbag sliding off her shoulder as she attempted to corral the energetic children. At 44, the youngest Thompson sibling still retained the harried look of a single mother juggling too many responsibilities. The kids had soccer, and then traffic was awful, and "Grandma," the twins shouted in unison, barreling into Ellie's waiting arms. "There are my favorite troublemakers," Ellie laughed, genuinely delighted by their enthusiasm. She held them at arm's length, examining their dirt-streaked faces. "Looks like soccer was a muddy affair today." "I scored 2 goals," Ethan announced proudly. "And I stopped 3, Emma countered, not to be outdone. Ellie guided them toward the stairs. "Wonderful now. Upstairs to wash up before dinner. You know where the towels are." As the children thundered up the stairs, Michael entered through the front door, his wife Sarah in tow. At 48, Michael had inherited James's stocky build and practical nature, transitioning those traits into a successful career in insurance. "Mom," he greeted, giving her a dutiful hug. "How have you been feeling?" Any more of those headaches you mentioned last month? Ellie resisted the urge to roll her eyes. That was a single headache, Michael, from gardening in the hot sun without a hat. I've been perfectly fine since then. Sarah offered a sympathetic smile as she handed Ellie a bottle of wine. We brought your favorite Merlot. And don't mind Michael, he worries because he cares. Where's Daniel? Ellie asked, noting the absence of her middle son. Patricia checked her watch with disapproval. Late, as usual. He texted that he's wrapped up with a client and will be here as soon as he can. Plus, I'm sure Melissa wants some of his attention, Michael added, referring to Daniel's new girlfriend who was 15 years his junior, a fact that had become a source of family gossip. Well, we'll start without him, Ellie decided, leading everyone to the dining room where the table was immaculately set for 7. He knows we eat at 6. Dinner began with the usual family updates, Patricia's latest high-profile case, Michael's expansion of his insurance agency, Lizzie's struggles with the school board over funding for arts programs. Ellie listened attentively, offering appropriate questions and comments, though she couldn't help noticing the way her children subtly steered the conversation away from anything that might upset her politics, crime rates, even rising grocery prices, as if she were too fragile to handle reality. When there was a natural lull in conversation, Ellie decided to mention the topic that had been on her mind. I had coffee with Alex yesterday morning, she said casually, serving another helping of roasted potatoes to Sarah. He suggested some interesting adjustments to my portfolio, given the current market volatility. The silence that followed was immediate and uncomfortable. Patricia's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Michael and Sarah exchanged a quick glance. Alex, Patricia finally asked, her lawyer's voice taking on that careful tone she used when questioning a potentially unreliable witness. Alex who, Mom? Alexander Rivers, Ellie replied, surprised by their reaction. My financial advisor, I've mentioned him before. Another silence fell over the table, heavier than the first. Patricia and Michael exchanged one of those looks that Ellie had come to recognize, a silent communication that excluded her from her own life. Mom, Michael said gently, leaning forward with exaggerated patience, you don't have a financial advisor. We've talked about this. Your finances are simple Social Security, Dad's pension, and the small savings account. There's no portfolio to adjust. Ellie felt a familiar twist in her chest, a combination of hurt and frustration that had become increasingly common in her interactions with her children. Of course I have a financial advisor, she countered firmly. Alex has been helping me for over a year now. We meet every Tuesday morning at Riverside Park by the old fountain. Lizzie's expression shifted to concern. Mom, are you feeling all right? Maybe you're thinking of someone you saw on television or read about in one of your books. I am not confused, Ellie stated, her voice sharper than intended. Alexander Rivers is very real. Just yesterday, he explained how the technology sector volatility might affect my investments. Patricia set down her wine glass with a decisive clink. Mother, listen to me carefully. There is no Alexander Rivers. You've never mentioned this person before tonight, and you certainly don't have a portfolio that requires professional management. The condescension in her daughter's voice ignited something fierce inside Ellie. Here was her firstborn, the child she'd nursed through chickenpox and heartbreaks and college application anxiety, speaking to her as if she were a senile old woman who couldn't distinguish reality from fantasy. Just because you haven't met him doesn't mean he doesn't exist, Ellie said evenly. Alex is a very private person. He prefers to keep our professional relationship discreet. Michael shook his head, exchanging a worried glance with Sarah. Mom, this is exactly what Dr. Feldman mentioned at your last checkup. Sometimes as we age, our minds can. My mind is perfectly clear, Ellie interrupted, feeling her cheeks flush with indignation. I am not some doddering old fool who invents imaginary friends. No one is saying you're a fool, Lizzie interjected quickly, always the peacemaker. But maybe we should consider having Dr. Feldman run some additional tests, just to be safe. Patricia nodded, already shifting into her take charge mode. I think that's an excellent idea. In fact, I think we need to have a more comprehensive conversation about Mom's living situation and her ability to manage her affairs independently. The words hit Ellie like a physical blow. Her own children were discussing her competency as if she weren't sitting right there with them. They were planning to have her evaluated, questioned, possibly declared unfit to make her own decisions, all because she'd mentioned having coffee with Alex. You want to have me declared incompetent? She asked quietly, the realization settling over her like a cold blanket. You want to take away my independence because I have a financial advisor you've never met. We want to make sure you're safe and cared for, Patricia corrected, but her lawyer's training couldn't completely hide the steel beneath her diplomatic words. If you're having conversations with people who don't exist, if you believe you have financial assets that aren't real, then yes, we need to take steps to protect you from yourself. Michael nodded solemnly. Mom, we love you. Everything we're suggesting comes from a place of love and concern. But you have to understand how this sounds from our perspective. Ellie looked around the table at her children, these adults she'd raised and sacrificed for and loved unconditionally. They were looking at her with pity, with concern, with a kind of patronizing patience reserved for small children and the mentally impaired. Not one of them considered the possibility that she might be telling the truth. You'll meet him, she said softly, her voice carrying a quiet certainty that seemed to surprise them. Alexander Rivers is as real as any of you sitting at this table. And when you do meet him, I hope you'll remember this conversation and how quickly you were willing to dismiss your mother's word. Patricia's expression hardened. Mom, please don't make this more difficult than it needs to be. We're going to schedule an appointment with Dr. Feldman for next week. We're also going to look into some nice assisted living facilities places where you can have independence but also have support when you need it. I don't need support, Ellie said, standing from the table with as much dignity as she could muster. I need my family to trust me and respect me enough to believe what I'm telling them. Lizzie reached for her hand. Mom, we do respect you, but you have to understand. No, Ellie interrupted, pulling her hand away. You don't understand. You've already made up your minds. You've decided that your elderly mother has lost her grip on reality, and nothing I say will change that. She began clearing the dishes, a task that had been hers for so many decades, it felt automatic. Her children sat in uncomfortable silence, clearly struggling with how to handle a situation that had escalated beyond their expectations. Alex will be at the park tomorrow morning, as he is every Tuesday, Ellie said without looking at them. If any of you cared enough to actually verify what I'm telling you, instead of simply assuming I'm delusional, you could come with me and meet him yourself. Mom, Michael started, but Ellie cut him off. But you won't, because it's easier to believe your mother is losing her mind than to consider that she might have parts of her life you don't know about. Patricia stood, her professional composure firmly in place. We'll discuss this more after you've had a chance to think about what we've said. I'm going to call Dr. Feldman first thing in the morning. You do that, Ellie replied, scraping plates with more force than necessary. But don't expect me to cooperate with your plans, to warehouse me somewhere convenient. One by one, her children gathered their belongings and said their awkward goodbyes. Lizzie lingered the longest, clearly torn between supporting her siblings and defending her mother. Finally, she kissed Ellie's cheek and whispered, I love you, Mom. We all do. We just want what's best for you. After they left, Ellie stood in her kitchen surrounded by the remnants of what should have been a pleasant family dinner. The house felt enormous and empty, filled with the echoes of a conversation that had changed everything between them. But as she finished cleaning up, Ellie found herself smiling slightly. Tomorrow was Tuesday, and Alex would be at the park as he always was. Her children thought they knew everything about her life, about her capabilities, about her mental state. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. The call came at 7:30 Wednesday morning, jarring Ellie from the peaceful silence of her morning coffee ritual. Patricia's voice cut through the phone line with surgical precision. All business despite the early hour. Mother, I've scheduled your appointment with Dr. Feldman for Friday at 2 Neo. I'll be picking you up at 1:15. No, good morning. No asking how she'd slept. Just the presumption that Ellie would comply with plans made without consulting her. Ellie stirred honey into her coffee and watched the golden swirls dissolve, much like her patience with her eldest daughter's high-handed approach. I haven't agreed to any appointment. Patricia, this isn't a negotiation. After last night's dinner, it's clear that we need professional guidance on how to proceed. Dr. Feldman specializes in geriatric cognitive assessment. He'll be able to determine whether your recent behaviors indicate the onset of dementia or if there are other underlying issues we need to address. Recent behaviors, as if having a financial advisor constituted aberrant conduct requiring medical intervention. Ellie took a long sip of her coffee, savoring both the warmth and the moment of silence before responding. My behavior is perfectly normal for a woman who refuses to be treated like an incompetent child by her own offspring. Patricia's sigh carried clearly across the phone connection. Mom, please don't make this harder than it needs to be. We're trying to help you. You're trying to control me. There's a significant difference. After ending the call, Ellie sat in her kitchen considering her options. Her children had made their decision about her mental state based on a single mention of Alexander Rivers. They were moving forward with their plans to have her evaluated and, depending on the results, potentially declared unfit to manage her own affairs. What they didn't understand was that she had been managing affairs far more complex than they could imagine. While they saw an aging widow struggling with the basics of daily life, Alex and she had been building an investment portfolio that would ensure her independence for the rest of her days and leave a substantial legacy for future generations. The irony was almost amusing. They were worried about her ability to handle her own finances while remaining completely oblivious to the fact that she had become wealthier than all of them combined. Thursday brought Michael to her doorstep, unannounced, and carrying a box of groceries that she neither needed nor requested. His presumption that she couldn't manage her own shopping was another small indignity in a growing collection of slights against her competence. Just thought I'd check on you. Mom, he said, bustling into her kitchen and beginning to unpack items she would never have chosen for herself: low sodium this, sugar free that. Everything selected by someone who assumed she couldn't be trusted to make appropriate choices about her own nutrition. I'm perfectly capable of buying my own groceries. Michael, I know you are, but it's no trouble for Sarah and me to pick up a few things when we're out. Besides, some of these specialty items are easier to find at the larger stores. Specialty items, as if her advancing age had rendered her incapable of digesting regular food. Ellie watched him arrange cans in her pantry, according to some organizational system that made sense only to him, and felt the familiar sting of being managed rather than helped. Have you given any more thought to what we discussed Tuesday night? He asked, his back turned as he continued his uninvited reorganization of her kitchen. You mean your plan to have me declared mentally incompetent? That's not what we're doing, and you know it. We're concerned about your well-being. This Alexander Rivers person, Mom, these conversations you think you're having, they're not real. We need to understand what's causing these episodes so we can help you. Episodes, another clinical term to describe her perfectly rational interactions with a legitimate financial professional. Ellie considered telling Michael exactly how much money Alex had helped her accumulate, but something held her back. Perhaps it was the knowledge that the revelation would be more powerful when delivered at the right moment, in front of all of them simultaneously. You could meet him yourself if you really wanted to verify his existence. Michael turned to face her, his expression patient but patronizing. Mom, I followed you to the park yesterday morning. The words hit Ellie like cold water. You? What? I was worried about you after Tuesday night. I wanted to see what was really happening during these supposed meetings with your financial advisor. Heat flooded her cheeks. You spied on me. I wouldn't call it spying. I was concerned. And Mom, what I saw confirmed our fears. You sat on that bench for over an hour, talking to empty air, having animated conversations with no one. It was heartbreaking to watch. Ellie's mind raced, trying to process what Michael was telling her. Yesterday morning, she and Alex had their usual Tuesday meeting. They discussed market volatility, reviewed quarterly projections, and planned strategy adjustments. Alex had been as present and engaged as always, offering insights that had proven profitable over the months they'd worked together. That's impossible, she said slowly. Alex was there. We talked for nearly 2 hours about my portfolio. Michael's face crumpled with sympathy, the expression one might reserve for a beloved pet diagnosed with a terminal illness. Mom, there was no one there. You were alone on that bench, talking and gesturing as if someone was sitting beside you. I stayed for the entire time, hoping someone would show up to explain what was happening, but it was just you having a conversation with your imagination. The room seemed to tilt slightly. Michael's words challenged not just her perception of yesterday's events, but her entire understanding of her relationship with Alex. Had she been delusional? Had months of meetings been elaborate fantasies created by a mind struggling with isolation and age? I'm not imagining Alexander Rivers, she said, but her voice lacked the conviction she'd felt just moments before. I know you believe that, and that's what makes this so difficult. The mind can play tricks on us, especially as we get older. Sometimes we create relationships to fill voids in our lives. It doesn't mean you're crazy or that there's anything wrong with you as a person. It just means you need help. Michael's gentle tone somehow made his words more devastating than if he'd been harsh or dismissive. He genuinely believed he'd witnessed evidence of her deteriorating mental state. From his perspective, he'd seen his mother having an extended conversation with no one, confirming his worst fears about her cognitive decline. But Ellie knew what she'd experienced. Alexander Rivers was real substantial, knowledgeable about financial markets in ways that her imagination could never have conjured. Their conversations contained information and insights that went far beyond anything she could have invented on her own. Unless they didn't. Unless her mind had been constructing elaborate fantasies based on fragments of financial news and half-remembered conversations from James's business dealings. Unless Michael was right, and she was losing the ability to distinguish between reality and wishful thinking, the doubt crept in like fog, obscuring certainties she'd taken for granted. By the time Michael left, carrying with him the satisfied air of someone who'd confirmed his suspicions, Ellie was questioning everything she thought she knew about her weekly meetings in the park. That evening, Lizzie called with a gentleness that somehow felt more patronizing than Patricia's direct approach or Michael's concerned observations. Mom, I've been thinking about what happened at dinner, and I want you to know that I love you, no matter what we're dealing with. What we're dealing with, Ellie repeated. You mean my supposed dementia? I mean whatever challenges you're facing. Michael told me about yesterday morning, about what he saw at the park. I know this must be confusing and frightening for you. Confusing was an understatement. Frightening was closer to the truth. The possibility that her mind was creating elaborate fantasies terrified her more than any physical ailment she could imagine. If she couldn't trust her own perceptions, if her memories of conversations and interactions were fabrications, then what else might be false? Lizzie, I need you to be honest with me. Have I mentioned Alexander Rivers before Tuesday night? There was a pause. No. Mom, Tuesday was the first time any of us had heard that name. But I've been meeting with him for over a year. Surely I must have mentioned him in passing. Talked about our conversations. Referenced his advice. You haven't. We would have remembered if you'd talked about having a financial advisor. It's not the kind of thing we would have forgotten. Her words carried the weight of certainty, the collective memory of 4 adult children who paid attention to their mother's activities and concerns. If she had truly been meeting with Alex for 14 months, wouldn't she have mentioned him to her family? Wouldn't there have been some reference to his guidance, some acknowledgement of his role in her financial planning? The absence of any prior mentions seemed to support their theory that Alex was a recent creation of her aging mind, a fantasy companion invented to fill the loneliness left by James's death. The appointment with Dr. Feldman will help us understand what's happening, Lizzie continued. There are treatments available now, medications that can slow the progression of cognitive decline. The important thing is that we're catching this early. After the call ended, Ellie sat in James's old chair and tried to sort through her memories of meeting Alex. She could recall their conversations with perfect clarity, remember his insights and recommendations, visualize his appearance and mannerisms, but memory, she was learning, could be an unreliable narrator. Friday morning arrived with the weight of inevitability. Patricia picked her up precisely at 1:15, her punctuality a point of pride that Ellie had once found admirable but now experienced as another form of control. She chatted nervously during the drive to Dr. Feldman's office, filling the silence with updates about her work and observations about the weather. Dr. Feldman was younger than Ellie had expected, perhaps in his early 50s, with kind eyes and a gentle manner that immediately put her at ease. His office was decorated with family photos and children's drawings, creating an atmosphere more reminiscent of a favorite uncle's study than a clinical examination room. Mrs. Thompson, I understand your family has some concerns about recent changes in your behavior. They think I'm having conversations with imaginary people. And what do you think? The question surprised her. She'd expected him to begin with assumptions about her mental state, to approach their conversation through the lens of suspected dementia. Instead, he seemed genuinely interested in her perspective on the situation. I think my children are having difficulty accepting that their mother might have aspects of her life they don't know about. Dr. Feldman nodded thoughtfully. Tell me about Alexander Rivers. So she did. She described their weekly meetings, their discussions about market trends and investment strategies, his professional demeanor and obvious expertise. Dr. Feldman listened without interruption, occasionally taking notes, but never displaying the skeptical expression she'd grown accustomed to seeing from her family. These conversations you have with Mr. Rivers, do they feel real to you? Completely real. As real as this conversation we're having now. And the investment advice he gives you doesn't seem knowledgeable and appropriate. Extraordinarily so. Alex understands market dynamics in ways that have impressed me consistently over the months we've worked together. Dr. Feldman leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. Mrs. Thompson, I'm going to ask you to undergo some cognitive assessments, but I want you to know that your responses today don't suggest obvious signs of dementia or other serious cognitive impairment. Your speech is clear, your thought processes are logical, and your memory appears intact. Relief flooded through her. Then you don't think I'm losing my mind? I think the human brain is remarkably complex, and our understanding of how it processes social connections and relationships is still evolving. The fact that your family can't verify Mr. Rivers's existence is concerning from their perspective, but it doesn't necessarily indicate cognitive decline. The assessment tests that followed were more extensive than Ellie had anticipated. Dr. Feldman evaluated her memory, problem solving abilities, spatial awareness, and language skills. Some tasks were simple, like remembering word lists or identifying objects in photographs. Others required more complex reasoning, such as solving mathematical problems or explaining the relationships between abstract concepts. Throughout the testing, Ellie found herself performing well, her mind sharp and focused despite the emotional strain of the past few days. When they finished, Dr. Feldman reviewed his notes with an expression that seemed almost puzzled. Mrs. Thompson, your cognitive function tests within normal ranges for your age group. Your memory is excellent. Your reasoning skills are intact, and you show no signs of the confusion or disorientation typically associated with dementia. Then why can't my family see Alexander? That's a question I can't answer definitively. There are documented cases of individuals who report interactions with people that others cannot perceive, but who show no other signs of mental illness or cognitive impairment. Sometimes these experiences serve important psychological functions, providing companionship or guidance during difficult periods. Dr. Feldman's explanation offered some comfort, but it also left room for doubt. Was Alex real, or wasn't he? The question seemed to exist in a gray area between medical certainty and psychological mystery. What will you tell my family? I'll tell them that your cognitive abilities appear normal for your age, and that any decisions about your independence should be based on your actual functional capacity rather than concerns about specific behaviors that may have explanations we don't fully understand. When Patricia and Ellie left Dr. Feldman's office, her daughter's satisfaction was evident. She'd gotten professional validation that her mother required monitoring and concern, even if the doctor hadn't provided the clear diagnosis of dementia she might have expected. At least now we know what we're dealing with, she said as they drove back to Ellie's house. What exactly do you think we're dealing with? Early stage cognitive changes that are affecting your perception of reality. Dr. Feldman was diplomatic about it, but the implication was clear. You're having experiences that feel real to you, but don't correspond to objective reality. Ellie didn't argue. Patricia had heard what she needed to hear to justify her concerns and her plans for managing her mother's care. She hadn't absorbed Dr. Veltman's emphasis on Ellie's normal cognitive function or his suggestion that her experiences might have explanations beyond mental deterioration. That evening, alone in her house, Ellie made a decision that would either prove her sanity or confirm her family's worst fears. She called Alexander Rivers. His number was programmed into her phone, as it had been for months. If he was imaginary, if their relationship existed only in her deteriorating mind, then the call would go nowhere. There would be no answer, no voicemail, no evidence of his existence outside her delusions. The phone rang twice before his familiar voice answered. "Hello, Ellie. I was hoping you'd call." The relief that washed over her was so intense it left her momentarily speechless. Alex was real. His voice was clear and distinct, not the product of her imagination, but the actual sound of a living person speaking through a telephone connection. "Alex, I need to see you. Something has happened, and I need to know that you're really there." "Of course, but not at the park this time. Your family is watching you too closely. Can you meet me at the Blue Harbor Cafe tomorrow at 10:00? It's public enough to be safe, but private enough for us to talk freely." The Blue Harbor Cafe was a small establishment she'd never visited, located on the other side of town from her usual haunts. If Alex was a figment of her imagination, how would she know about a place she'd never been? How would her mind conjure specific details about its location and atmosphere? "I'll be there," she promised, her resolve strengthening with each word. And Alex, thank you. After hanging up, Ellie went to her bedroom closet and pushed aside the hanging clothes to reveal a small wall safe hidden behind them. James had installed it years ago, insisting that everyone should have a secure place for important documents and valuables. Ellie spun the combination their anniversary date and opened the heavy door. Inside, alongside her passport and James's service medals, was a thick manila envelope. She pulled it out and carried it to her bed, emptying its contents across the comforter. Bank statements, investment summaries, portfolio analyses, all bearing her name and showing balances that would have shocked her children into silence. The documents weren't hallucinations. They were tangible proof of her financial reality, evidence that Alexander Rivers was exactly who she claimed him to be. She gathered the papers carefully, returning them to the envelope and the envelope to the safe. Tomorrow, she would get answers about why Michael couldn't see Alex at the park. Tomorrow, she would begin planning how to prove to her children that their mother was neither delusional nor incompetent. But first, she needed to understand why she was being watched in her own home. Ellie moved quietly through the house, checking behind picture frames, under furniture, inside light fixtures, all the places where someone might hide small surveillance devices. In the living room, behind the family photo taken at James's funeral, she found the first one, a tiny camera, no bigger than a button, positioned to capture most of the main floor. In the kitchen, taped beneath the counter overhang, was a small listening device. She found three more throughout the downstairs, one in the dining room, one near the front door, and one in her study where she kept her computer and personal papers. Patricia. It had to be Patricia, with her connections to private investigators and security consultants through her law firm. Her eldest daughter wasn't just concerned, she was actively spying on her, gathering evidence of supposed mental decline to build a case for guardianship. The betrayal stung deeper than Ellie could have imagined. This wasn't loving concern. This was violation. This was treating her like a suspect rather than a mother. She considered removing the devices, but decided against it. Better to know she was being watched than to alert Patricia that she'd discovered the surveillance. For now, knowledge was power, the only power she had left in this increasingly bizarre situation. Ellie slept fitfully that night, her dreams filled with faceless watchers and children who turned into strangers. She woke before dawn, her mind clear and focused despite the emotional turmoil. Today, she would get answers. Today, she would begin reclaiming her life from those who sought to control it. She dressed carefully in a navy pantsuit that Patricia had given her last Christmas, applied subtle makeup, and styled her silver hair in a neat bob. If she was going to fight for her independence, she would do so looking every inch the capable, competent woman she knew herself to be. As she prepared to leave for her meeting with Alex, Ellie noticed a car parked across the street, a silver sedan she recognized as belonging to Daniel's accounting firm. So, they'd assigned her middle son to the morning surveillance shift. The coordination of her children's efforts would have been impressive if it weren't so deeply insulting. Instead of leaving through the front door where Daniel would see her, Ellie went out through the kitchen and cut through Mrs. Abernathy's yard next door. The elderly widow was already in her garden, deadheading late-season roses. "Morning, Eleanor," Mrs. Abernathy called cheerfully. "You're out and about early today." "Just running some errands." "Mabel," Ellie replied with a smile, "would you mind if I used your side gate? I'm trying to get my steps in, and it's a more direct route to where I'm headed." "Of course, dear. The latch sticks a bit, but give it a good push and it should open right up." Mrs. Abernathy returned to her roses, blissfully unaware that she was aiding Ellie's escape from family surveillance. The side gate did indeed stick, but Ellie managed to push it open and slip through to the alley behind the row of houses. From there, she could make her way to the bus stop on Elm Street without being seen from her own block. The Blue Harbor Cafe was exactly as Alex had described it, a cozy establishment with mismatched furniture and local artwork covering the walls. He was already seated at a corner table when she arrived, his silver hair catching the morning light streaming through the windows. He stood when he saw her, his smile warm and genuine. The waitress looked directly at him when she approached their table, took his order for black coffee, without any sign that she was interacting with someone who didn't exist. Other patrons glanced in their direction occasionally, their casual attention confirming that they saw two people having a conversation rather than one elderly woman talking to herself. "You look troubled, Ellie," Alex said once they were alone. "Tell me what's been happening." She explained the events of the past few days, her family's concerns, Michael's claims about following her to the park, the appointment with Dr. Feldman, the surveillance devices she'd discovered in her home. Alex listened intently, his expression growing more serious as she described their plans to potentially have her declared incompetent. "They followed you to our meeting?" he asked, his voice sharp with concern. "According to Michael, he watched me sit alone on the bench for 2 hours, talking to no one." Alex's face darkened. "That's impossible. I was there. Ellie, we had our usual discussion about your portfolio adjustments. I remember every detail of our conversation." "Then how do you explain what Michael claims he saw?" Alex was quiet for a long moment, his hands wrapped around his coffee cup. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a weight she'd never heard before. "There are things about me, about our relationship, that I haven't explained fully. Circumstances that make it necessary for me to be very careful about when and how I make myself visible to others." "What kind of circumstances?" "The kind that require a level of trust and discretion that goes beyond normal professional relationships. Ellie, your family's reaction to learning about me suggests that it's time for complete honesty between us." He reached into his briefcase and withdrew a folder, spreading documents across their small table bank statements, investment portfolios, account summaries showing numbers that made her breath catch in her throat. "Your current net worth is $1.8 billion, Alex said quietly. "Your children think you're living on Social Security and James's pension. They have no idea that over the past 14 months, We've built an investment portfolio that makes you one of the wealthiest women in the region. Ellie stared at the documents, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. The numbers were real, printed on official letterhead from prestigious financial institutions, account balances that dwarfed anything she could have imagined. How is this possible? I never had this kind of money to invest. You did, Ellie. You just didn't know it. James left you far more than the modest inheritance your children are aware of. There were accounts, investments, assets that he kept private even from you during his lifetime. When he died, those assets transferred to you, but the documentation was complex enough that they remained hidden until I helped you locate and consolidate them. The revelation left her reeling. James had been a successful business owner, but she'd never imagined he'd accumulated wealth on this scale. Their lifestyle had been comfortable but modest, their expenses reasonable and well within their apparent means. Why didn't he tell me? James was a very private man when it came to financial matters. He wanted to ensure your security without burdening you with the complexities of managing substantial wealth. The arrangements he made were designed to activate after his death, providing you with the resources you'd need while maintaining the privacy he valued. Alex's explanation made sense, but it raised new questions about the nature of his relationship with her family's finances. How did you know about James's arrangements? How did you find me? That's where the story becomes more complicated, Ellie, and it's why your children's desire to meet me presents certain challenges that go beyond simple professional discretion. The way he said it sent a chill through her. There was something in Alex's tone, a hesitation that suggested they were approaching territory that would change everything she thought she understood about their relationship. What aren't you telling me, Alex? He closed the folder and leaned forward, his eyes holding hers with an intensity that made her heart race. I'm telling you that your family is about to learn truths that will challenge everything they believe about their past, their mother, and the nature of protection and loyalty. I don't understand. You will, Ellie, Sunday. When I come to dinner as your guest, you'll understand everything, and so will they. The certainty in his voice both thrilled and terrified her. Whatever Alex was planning to reveal would vindicate her claims about his existence while simultaneously exposing secrets that had been hidden for decades. My children have been watching me. Alex, they've planted devices in my home. They're gathering evidence to have me declared incompetent. Alex nodded, unsurprised. Patricia hired Sentinel Security Group last Wednesday, the day after your family dinner. They installed 6 surveillance devices in your home while you were at your book club meeting. They've also been monitoring your phone calls, your internet usage, and your financial transactions. Ellie's eyes widened. How could you possibly know that? Because I've been watching them watch you? Alex's smile was grim. Your children aren't the only ones with resources. Ellie, the difference is, I'm using mine to protect you, not control you. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small electronic device, no bigger than a key fob. This will temporarily disable the surveillance equipment in your home. Press this button when you arrive, and you'll have approximately 4 hours of privacy before the systems automatically reset. Use that time to prepare for Sunday. Ellie took the device, feeling its weight in her palm like a tangible promise of regained autonomy. What do you want me to do? Invite your children to dinner? All of them, including Daniel, whom you've barely seen since this situation began. Tell them you've reconsidered their concerns and want to discuss your future care. Make them believe you're ready to cooperate. And then, I'll arrive at exactly 6 p.m., and together we'll show them exactly how capable Eleanor Thompson really is. As she looked into Alex's confident eyes, Ellie felt something she hadn't experienced since James's death, the solid certainty of having a true ally. Someone who saw her clearly and valued her strength rather than focusing on her age or perceived vulnerabilities. My children think they're protecting me, she said softly, but they're really just trying to control me. People often confuse the two, Alex replied, especially when it comes to those they claim to love. By Sunday night, they'll understand the difference and they'll never underestimate you again. As Ellie left the cafe, her step was lighter than it had been in days. She had proof of her sanity, confirmation of her financial security, and a plan to reclaim her autonomy from well-meaning but misguided children who had forgotten that their mother was still very much her own person. Sunday would change everything. Sunday, Alexander Rivers would step from the shadows, and her children would finally see the truth not just about him, but about the mother they thought they knew so well. Saturday morning found Ellie in her kitchen, preparing coffee with methodical precision while her mind raced with preparations for the following day. The weight of Alex's revelations still hadn't fully settled the billions in hidden assets. James's secret financial empire, the surveillance operation her children had mounted against her. She pressed the button on Alex's device, feeling a small satisfaction at the thought of Patricia's surveillance feed suddenly going dark. 4 hours of privacy time to gather her thoughts and fortify herself for the confrontation to come. The doorbell rang, pulling her from her reflections. Through the peephole, she saw Daniel shifting uncomfortably on her front porch, his lanky frame tense with the awkwardness of a child caught misbehaving. "Daniel," she greeted him, opening the door. "This is a surprise. I thought you were too busy with work and Melissa to visit your delusional mother." Her middle son winced at her directness. At 47, Daniel still had the boyish looks and apologetic manner that had helped him navigate life's challenges with minimal confrontation, a sharp contrast to Patricia's assertiveness and Michael's stoic determination. "Mom, I'm sorry I missed dinner Tuesday. And for, well, everything that's happened since. Can I come in?" Ellie stepped aside, allowing him into the house where he'd grown up. "Your siblings have assigned you the morning shift. I see. Patricia must be at court, and Michael has his agency to run." Daniel's expression confirmed her suspicion. "It's not like that. It's exactly like that. Coffee." He followed her to the kitchen, settling onto a bar stool at the counter while she poured 2 mugs. "They're worried about you. Mom, we all are." Worried enough to plant surveillance devices in my home, to follow me to private appointments, to discuss having me declared incompetent as if I weren't a thinking, feeling human being with rights and dignity? Daniel had the grace to look ashamed. I told them they were going too far with the surveillance. That's partly why I'm here to tell you that I disagreed with that approach. But not with the underlying assumption that your mother is losing her mind. Mom, you talked about having a financial advisor we've never heard of, managing money you don't have. You have to understand how that sounds. Ellie took a deliberate sip of her coffee, studying her son over the rim of her mug. Of her 4 children, Daniel had always been the most sensitive to emotional undercurrents, the one most likely to consider alternative perspectives. Perhaps he was the right one to test the waters with. "What if I told you that Alex Rivers is real, that he's been managing substantial assets your father left me, and that there are aspects of your parents' lives you know nothing about?" Daniel's expression softened with sympathy. "I'd say that's exactly what someone experiencing cognitive decline might believe, that there are secret fortunes and hidden advisors that only they can see or understand." His response stung more than Ellie expected. Even Daniel, her most empathetic child, was completely convinced of her mental deterioration. "I see," she said quietly. "Well, I've been thinking about what you and your siblings have suggested. Perhaps it would be best if we all sat down together tomorrow evening to discuss my future care and living arrangements." Daniel's surprise was evident. "Really, that's great, Mom. Everyone will be relieved to hear you're willing to talk about this rationally." The condescension in his tone that she was finally being rational by accepting their assessment of her mental state added another layer to her determination to reveal the truth. "I'll expect all of you for dinner at 6 p.m. sharp. And Daniel, tell your siblings to dress appropriately. This will be an important evening for our family." After Daniel left, clearly pleased with what he perceived as a breakthrough in her acceptance of her condition, Ellie went to her study and unlocked the bottom drawer of her desk. Inside was a worn leather journal, James's private notebook, which she'd discovered after his death but had never fully explored, respecting his privacy even beyond the grave. Now, she opened it carefully, turning pages filled with his distinctive handwriting until she reached the entries from the last year of his life. There, in cryptic notations and half-formed thoughts, were hints of the secret he'd kept from her references to offshore accounts, investment strategies, and asset protection plans. One entry in particular caught her eye. A.R. Confirms transfer protocols in place. If anything happens, Ellie will be taken care of. The children must never know the full extent it would change everything, put them at risk. Better they live normal lives, unburdened by what I've built and what it cost. Our Alexander Rivers. James had known him, worked with him, trusted him to protect Ellie if something happened. But what had James been protecting their children from? What risk could possibly be associated with their financial inheritance? The questions multiplied, but one certainty remained tomorrow night. Alexander Rivers would step out of the shadows, and the truth, whatever it might be, would finally come to light. Ellie closed the journal and returned it to its hiding place. Then she began planning Sunday dinner with the precision of a general preparing for battle. The meal would be perfect, the setting immaculate, and when Alex arrived at 6 p.m., her children would finally understand that underestimating Eleanor Thompson had been their most significant mistake. Sunday arrived with the kind of crystal clarity that makes ordinary moments feel significant. Ellie stood at her kitchen window, watching a pair of cardinals in her backyard maple tree, and felt the weight of impending change settling around her, like the season itself. Alexander Rivers had promised to arrive at 6 p.m. precisely, when her family would be gathering for their traditional Sunday dinner. The timing was deliberate, calculated to maximize the impact of his appearance. Her children expected to find their confused mother setting a place at the table for an imaginary guest. Instead, they would encounter a reality that would shatter every assumption they'd made about her mental state and her circumstances. Ellie spent the morning cooking with more care than she'd invested in a meal for years: prime rib roast, roasted vegetables with herbs from her garden, fresh dinner rolls that filled the house with the scent of yeast and butter. If this was to be a day of revelations, she wanted it accompanied by a feast worthy of the occasion. Patricia called at noon, her voice carrying the cautious tone she'd adopted since their confrontation earlier in the week. "Mom, Daniel mentioned that you invited everyone to dinner today to discuss arrangements. Are you feeling all right?" "I feel perfectly fine, Patricia. And yes, I've invited everyone to join us. I've also invited Alexander Rivers. I thought it was time you all met him." The silence that followed stretched long enough for Ellie to imagine Patricia's expression, the mixture of concern and frustration that had become her default response to her mother's behavior. "Mother, we've discussed this. There is no Alexander Rivers. Please don't make this harder on yourself by continuing to insist that your imaginary friend will be joining us for dinner. He'll be here at 6:00. I suggest you prepare yourselves to be surprised. I'm calling Dr. Feldman first thing tomorrow morning. This delusion is becoming more elaborate, and I think we need to consider more intensive intervention." After hanging up, Ellie continued her meal preparations with the satisfaction of someone who knew she was about to prove a significant point. Her children had made their judgments based on limited information and their own preconceptions about aging and mental decline. They were about to learn the dangers of underestimating Eleanor Thompson. Lizzie arrived first, as she usually did, bringing her twins and her perpetual aura of gentle concern. She hugged Ellie with the careful tenderness reserved for fragile things, her eyes scanning her mother's face for signs of deterioration. "How are you feeling today, Mom? Are you still planning to have dinner with your friend? Alexander will be here shortly. I think you'll find him quite charming." Lizzie's smile was patient and sad. "Mom, I know you believe that, but we're here to support you no matter what happens. If your friend doesn't arrive, that's okay. We love you regardless." Her kindness was almost harder to bear than Patricia's directness or Michael's clinical observations. Lizzie's pity carried the weight of genuine affection, making her inability to trust her mother's word even more painful. Michael arrived with Sarah, both of them wearing expressions of determined cheerfulness that couldn't quite mask their underlying anxiety. Sarah had brought a covered dish despite Ellie's protests that she prepared everything they needed her contribution, a not-so-subtle suggestion that Ellie might be losing her ability to manage a complete meal. "Something smells wonderful in here," Sarah said brightly, kissing Ellie's cheek with practiced warmth. "You've been busy today. I wanted everything to be perfect for when Alexander arrives." Michael and Sarah exchanged one of those married couple glances that communicated volumes without words. They'd clearly discussed how to handle their mother-in-law's deteriorating grip on reality, settling on a strategy of supportive but watchful patience. Patricia arrived precisely at 5:30, her punctuality a point of pride that had shaped family gatherings for decades. She carried herself with the bearing of someone prepared for difficult conversations, her lawyer's training evident in the way she assessed the scene before committing to any particular approach. "Everything looks lovely, Mom," she said, surveying the dining room table set for 7 people. Her gaze lingered on the extra place setting, the wine glass and carefully folded napkin positioned for Alex's arrival. "Thank you for agreeing to this conversation. I know it isn't easy." Daniel was the last to arrive, slipping in just before 6 with a bottle of wine and an apologetic smile. "Sorry, I'm cutting it close." Traffic was a nightmare on the expressway. Ellie accepted the wine with a gracious nod, noting that her children had positioned themselves strategically around the living room, Patricia nearest to the front door, Michael by the entrance to the kitchen, Daniel and Lizzie flanking the sofa where they'd guided Ellie to sit. They were containing her, managing the space in anticipation of her potential distress when her imaginary guest failed to materialize. "Before anyone arrives," Patricia began, her voice slipping into the careful cadence she used with vulnerable witnesses, "I think we should talk about what's going to happen when 6 comes and no one shows up for dinner." Ellie smoothed her dress, a subtle blue silk she'd bought for James's retirement party years ago. "What's going to happen is that you'll meet Alexander Rivers and realize that your mother isn't losing her mind." Patricia's expression softened with the kind of sympathy typically reserved for terminal diagnoses. And if that doesn't happen, if 6-0 comes and goes without any guest arriving, will you consider the possibility that Alexander exists only in your imagination? The question hung in the air between them, loaded with implications that extended far beyond a single dinner invitation. Patricia was asking her to accept that her perception of reality was fundamentally flawed, that months of conversations and professional guidance had been elaborate fantasies created by a deteriorating mind. Alexander will be here, Ellie said simply, her voice carrying a conviction that surprised even her. The grandfather clock in the hallway began to chime the hour, its deep tones cutting through the tense silence that had settled over the living room. 1, 2, 3. By the sixth chime, the doorbell rang. The sound froze her children in place, their expressions cycling through confusion, disbelief, and the beginning of embarrassment. Patricia had risen from her chair but seemed unable to move further. Michael's mouth was slightly open, his confidence visibly shaken. Lizzie stared at the front door as if it might disappear if she blinked, her hands clutched together in her lap. That would be Alexander, Ellie said calmly, standing and moving toward the door with measured steps. Right on time, as always. She opened the door to reveal Alexander Rivers standing on her front porch, looking exactly as he always did, impeccably dressed in a charcoal gray suit with a silk tie that caught the evening light. His silver hair was perfectly styled, his posture erect and confident. He carried a leather briefcase in one hand and a bouquet of white roses in the other. "Good evening, Ellie," he said with the warm smile she'd come to associate with their Tuesday meetings. "I hope I'm not too early." "Your timing is perfect. Alexander, please come in." She led him into the living room where her family sat frozen in various stages of shock. Patricia had gone pale, her professional composure shattered. Michael was staring at Alex as if he were an apparition. Daniel and Lizzie exchanged quick glances of confusion and alarm. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet Alexander Rivers," Ellie said with the satisfaction of someone who had just won a significant victory. "Alexander, these are my children Patricia, Michael, Daniel, and Elizabeth, along with Michael's wife, Sarah, and Elizabeth's twins, Emma and Ethan." Alexander stepped forward with the practiced ease of someone comfortable in social situations, extending his hand first to Patricia, who shook it with the automatic politeness drilled into her by years of professional networking. "Miss Thompson, I've heard so much about you from your mother. She's very proud of your success in the legal profession." Patricia's response was barely audible, her lawyer's composure shattered by the simple fact of Alexander's existence. "Thank you. We weren't sure. You weren't sure I was real." Alexander finished gently, his tone carrying no judgment or criticism. "Your mother mentioned that there had been some confusion about our professional relationship." Michael stood abruptly, his face flushed with a mixture of embarrassment and anger. "I followed her to the park. I watched her talking to no one for 2 hours." Alexander's expression grew thoughtful. "Ah, that explains the miscommunication. Tuesday mornings can be challenging for visibility, especially from a distance. The morning fog, combined with the positioning of the benches, makes it difficult to see clearly from the parking area." "What exactly do you mean by visibility?" Patricia asked, her lawyer's instincts beginning to override her shock. "I mean that there are aspects of my work that require a certain level of discretion. Not everyone can see me at all times, and the circumstances under which I become visible to others are somewhat complicated." The room fell silent as Ellie's family tried to process Alexander's words. His explanation raised more questions than it answered, hinting at complexities that went beyond simple professional relationships. Sarah spoke for the first time since Alexander's arrival, her voice uncertain. "Are you saying that you can control whether people can see you?" Alexander smiled, but there was something enigmatic in his expression. "I'm saying that my relationship with your mother-in-law involves circumstances that most people would find difficult to understand or accept." Lizzie leaned forward, her protective instincts engaged despite her confusion. "What kind of circumstances? What exactly is your relationship with our mother? I'm her financial advisor." Alexander replied simply, "And I've been helping her manage assets that have generated substantial returns over the past 14 months. Patricia's professional skepticism reasserted itself. "What kind of assets? Mom lives on Social Security and Dad's pension? There aren't any significant assets to manage." Alexander opened his briefcase and withdrew the same folder he'd shown Ellie at the cafe. He spread documents across her coffee table with the same care he'd used in their private meeting bank statements and investment summaries that would forever change her children's understanding of their family's financial situation. Your mother's current net worth is approximately 1.8 billion, Alexander said quietly. These documents represent her investment portfolio, which I've been managing since shortly after your father's death. The silence that followed was absolute. Even Lizzie's twins seemed to sense the magnitude of the moment, their quiet play stopping as they observed the adults' stunned expressions. Patricia was the first to recover, reaching for the documents with hands that trembled slightly. She examined the papers with the thoroughness of someone trained to spot financial irregularities, her expression growing more incredulous with each page. These accounts, these institutions, they're all legitimate, she said slowly. But how is this possible? Where did this money come from? Alexander glanced at Ellie, seeking permission to continue. She nodded, ready for her children to learn the truth about their father's business dealings and the inheritance he'd left carefully hidden. Your father was far more successful than he allowed anyone to know, Alexander explained. James Thompson maintained separate investment accounts, real estate holdings, and business interests that he kept private even from your mother during his lifetime. The documentation was complex, designed to transfer these assets to Ellie after his death while maintaining the secrecy he valued. Michael sank back into his chair, his face pale. Dad was worth over $1 billion. That's impossible. We lived in this house, drove ordinary cars, took modest vacations. There was never any indication of that kind of wealth. James believed in discretion, Alexander continued. He wanted to ensure your mother's security without changing the family dynamics that had served you all so well. The arrangements he made were designed to activate after his death, providing Ellie with the resources she would need while maintaining her ability to live as she chose. Sarah spoke up, her practical nature asserting itself. But if this money existed, why didn't it show up in the estate proceedings? How could assets of this magnitude remain hidden during probate? The estate that went through probate represented only a small fraction of James's total wealth. Alexander explained. The majority of his assets were held in trusts and investment vehicles that transferred directly to your mother outside the normal probate process. Patricia was still studying the documents, her legal training helping her navigate the complex financial structures outlined in the papers. These trust arrangements, they're incredibly sophisticated. Dad would have needed expert legal and financial advice to set up something this elaborate. He did, Alexander said simply. James worked with a very select group of advisors who specialized in maintaining privacy for high net worth individuals. And you were one of those advisors? Daniel asked, speaking for the first time since Alexander's arrival. Alexander hesitated, his confidence wavering slightly. My relationship with your family goes back much further than 14 months, though the nature of that relationship is somewhat complicated to explain. The way he said it sent a chill through the room. There was something in Alexander's tone that suggested they were approaching revelations that would dwarf even the shock of learning about Ellie's hidden wealth. What do you mean? It goes back further, Ellie asked, though part of her wasn't sure she wanted to hear the answer. Alexander closed the financial documents and looked directly at her, his expression carrying a weight of emotion that transformed his features. The professional composure he'd maintained throughout the evening cracked slightly, revealing something deeper and more personal underneath. Ellie, there are things about me about my connection to your family that I've never told you. Things that explain not just why I've been so committed to protecting your financial security, but why I've been willing to meet secretly rather than working through normal professional channels. Patricia stood up, her lawyer's instincts sensing that they were approaching something significant. Mr. Rivers, I think you need to be completely transparent about your relationship with our family. You're right, Alexander replied, his voice barely above a whisper. Complete transparency is exactly what this situation requires. He reached into his briefcase again, this time withdrawing a different folder, one that looked older and more worn than the financial documents. The papers inside were yellowed with age, some handwritten, others bearing official stamps and seals. These documents will explain everything, Alexander said, his hands shaking slightly as he opened the folder. But I want you to understand that what I'm about to show you will challenge everything you believe about your family's history. Lizzie moved closer to Ellie, her protective instincts engaged despite her confusion about what was happening. Mom, are you sure you want to hear this? Ellie looked around the room at her children, these adults she'd raised and loved and protected for decades. They'd spent the past week questioning her sanity, planning to have her declared incompetent, assuming that their aging mother was losing her grip on reality. Now they were faced with evidence that not only was she competent, but she was wealthier than they'd ever imagined. But Alexander's demeanor suggested that they hadn't yet reached the most significant revelation of the evening. Whatever he was preparing to tell them would explain the mystery of his relationship with their family, while potentially exposing secrets that had been hidden for reasons she was only beginning to understand. Yes, she said firmly. I want to know everything. Alexander nodded and withdrew a photograph from the folder, one that made Ellie's breath catch in her throat. It was old, probably from the 1980s, showing two young men in military uniforms standing side by side. This photograph was taken at Quantico in 1982, Alexander said quietly. The man on the left is me. The man on the right is your father. The room erupted in confusion and disbelief. Michael stood up abruptly, his voice sharp with incredulity. Dad was never in the military. He was a business consultant his entire career. Alexander's expression remained calm but serious. That was his cover story. James Thompson was recruited by the CIA directly out of college. His consulting firm was established as a front for his intelligence work. That's absurd, Patricia interjected, her legal training making her the most skeptical of the siblings. We would have known if our father was a spy. Would you? Alexander countered gently. The entire point of deep cover is that no one knows, not friends, not neighbors, not even family. Ellie stared at the photograph, searching for signs of deception, but finding none. The young man standing beside Alexander was unmistakably James. The same smile lines around his eyes, the same slight tilt of his head when posing for photos. But this was a James she had never known, dressed in a uniform she had never seen him wear. James told me he attended business school, she said softly. We met after he'd established his consulting practice. Alexander nodded. That was part of his cover story. The consulting firm was legitimate. It served real clients and generated real income, but it also provided the perfect explanation for his frequent travel and diverse international contacts. Daniel, always the most analytical of the siblings, studied the photograph with growing concern. If this is true, why are you revealing it now? Aren't there laws against disclosing classified information? The operation your father was involved with was declassified 3 years ago, Alexander explained. Shortly after his death, actually. But the timing is not coincidental. James left explicit instructions that if anything happened to him, I was to wait until declassification to reveal the truth to his family. Patricia grabbed the photograph, examining it as if searching for evidence of manipulation. This could be doctored. Photo editing technology makes it possible to create convincing fakes. It could be, Alexander agreed calmly. But it isn't. He reached into the folder again, extracting a stack of official-looking documents, military service records, CIA personnel files, commendation letters, all bearing James Thompson's name and details that matched the man they had known as husband and father. These are copies of your father's service records, Alexander continued. The originals remain classified, but these redacted versions were released during declassification. They confirm that James Thompson served his country for over 30 years, operating primarily in Eastern Europe and Asia during the Cold War and its aftermath. Michael was shaking his head in denial. This is impossible. Dad ran a consulting business. He helped companies optimize their operations. He attended our soccer games and helped with homework. He couldn't have been a patriot who lived a double life to protect his country and his family. Alexander finished gently. I understand this is difficult to accept, but your father was exactly that, a devoted family man who also served his nation with extraordinary courage and commitment. Ellie's mind was racing, reassessing decades of memories through this new lens. James's unexplained absences for business trips, his fluency in languages he claimed to have learned for international clients, his surprising knowledge of world affairs and geopolitics that seemed unusually detailed for a business consultant. Did you know, Lizzie asked her, tears forming in her eyes. Did you know Dad was living a double life? No, Ellie whispered, the weight of this revelation settling on her shoulders. I had no idea. Alexander's expression softened with compassion. James wanted it that way, Ellie. Keeping you and the children in the dark was the greatest sacrifice of his career, but also his most important mission. What you didn't know couldn't put you in danger. Danger, Patricia repeated, her professional composure cracking slightly. What kind of danger? Alexander hesitated, weighing his next words carefully. Your father made powerful enemies during his career, people who wouldn't hesitate to target his family if they believed you had access to sensitive information. Is that why he kept his wealth hidden? Daniel asked, his analytical mind connecting the pieces. To keep us from drawing attention, partly. Alexander nodded. The modest lifestyle, The ordinary house in a typical suburb, it was all designed to maintain his cover and keep you safe. The wealth he accumulated was held in complex offshore structures under multiple layers of shell companies and trusts, impossible to trace back to him or his family. Michael was studying Alexander with growing suspicion. You still haven't explained who you are. If Dad was CIA, then what were you? His handler, his partner. Both, at different times, Alexander replied. James and I were recruited together, trained together, and worked many operations as a team. Later, when he moved into more specialized roles, I served as his primary handler and security contact. But that doesn't explain why you're here now? Patricia pressed. Why you've been meeting secretly with our mother for over a year. Alexander exchanged a look with Ellie, silently asking permission to continue. She nodded, equally desperate to understand the full picture. Before your father died, he asked me to protect Ellie, Alexander explained, not just financially, but physically, because James didn't die of a stroke 3 years ago. The statement hung in the air like a thunderclap, stunning everyone into silence. What are you saying? Ellie finally managed, her voice barely audible. I'm saying that James Thompson was assassinated. The room exploded in reactions, gasps from Lizzie and Sarah, a muttered curse from Michael, and a sharp, that's preposterous, and from Patricia. Daniel remained silent, his face pale as he processed this latest revelation. The medical examiner ruled it a stroke, Patricia insisted. There was an autopsy. We saw the report. The medical examiner saw exactly what he was meant to see, Alexander countered calmly. A perfectly executed assassination designed to mimic a natural death, a synthetic compound that triggers the same physiological response as a severe stroke, metabolizes completely within hours, and leaves no trace in standard toxicology screens. The clinical precision of his description sent a chill through the room. This wasn't speculation or conspiracy theory. This was professional knowledge delivered with the confidence of someone intimately familiar with such methods. Who? Ellie asked, her voice stronger now, fueled by a rising anger. Who killed my husband? An organization your husband had been investigating for years, Alexander replied, opening the briefcase again and extracting a thin file with a red border. Sentinel Global Investments. Daniel's head snapped up. The investment firm, they manage pension funds and sovereign wealth. They're one of the largest financial management companies in the world. Their legitimate business operations are extensive, Alexander agreed. But they also serve as a front for money laundering, political influence operations, and economic espionage on a global scale. James had compiled evidence linking them to market manipulation, bribery of government officials, and financing of extremist groups in multiple countries. Patricia shook her head in disbelief. If this were true, why wouldn't Dad have gone to the FBI, the SEC? Why keep this evidence hidden instead of bringing these criminals to justice? Because Sentinel has people inside those agencies, Alexander explained grimly. Your father had identified several high-ranking officials who were compromised taking bribes, sharing classified information, helping to cover up Sentinel's illegal activities. He couldn't trust the normal channels. Ellie's mind was reeling. The man she'd loved and mourned had been living a life she knew nothing about, fighting battles she couldn't have imagined, and ultimately died not from natural causes, but at the hands of enemies she never knew existed. The financial portfolio, she said suddenly, connecting pieces of the puzzle. The billions in assets that's not just James's money. Is it? Alexander smiled slightly, impressed by her insight. No, it isn't. A significant portion of it is evidence funds traced back to Sentinel's illegal operations, documented and preserved as proof of their criminal activities. James spent the last decade of his life following the money, creating a comprehensive map of Sentinel's entire operation. When he died, all of that evidence transferred to you, hidden among legitimate investments. So I'm not actually a billionaire, Ellie asked, feeling oddly relieved. Oh, you are, Alexander assured her. James was very well compensated for his work, and he was an exceptional investor. About $800 million of the portfolio is legitimately yours. The rest is evidence that will eventually be used to bring down one of the most dangerous criminal enterprises in the modern world. Michael leaned forward, his insurance professional's mind grappling with the risk implications. If these people killed Dad, and Mom now controls the evidence against them, doesn't that put her in incredible danger? Yes, Alexander acknowledged bluntly. That's why I've been meeting Ellie in public places, why I've maintained such strict operational security, and why I was careful about when and how I made myself visible. Visible? Lizzie repeated. You keep using that word. What exactly do you mean? Alexander stood and walked to the window, checking the street outside before responding. I'm not just James's former colleague, Ellie. I'm also your security detail. I've been watching over you for 3 years, mostly from a distance, making sure Sentinel didn't realize you had inherited James's evidence. But Michael said he saw Mom alone in the park. Daniel pointed out. If you were there, why couldn't he see you? Because I didn't want to be seen. Alexander replied simply, my training includes advanced techniques in counter-surveillance and evasion. I was 20 feet away, monitoring the area while appearing to read a newspaper. When Michael arrived, I recognized him but maintained my cover. I could see Ellie, but from Michael's vantage point, it would have appeared she was alone. Patricia's legal mind was working overtime, trying to reconcile these extraordinary claims with her understanding of reality. This sounds like something from a spy novel, not real life. The best cover stories often seem implausible. Alexander noted with a hint of professional pride. It's why they work. Ellie was about to ask another question when Alexander suddenly stiffened, his attention drawn to something outside the window. In an instant, his demeanor changed from calm explanation to high alert. Get down, he commanded sharply, diving toward Ellie and pulling her to the floor just as the front window exploded in a shower of glass. The sound of automatic weapons fire tore through the peaceful Sunday evening, bullets splintering wood and shattering decorative items throughout the living room. Michael reacted instantly, grabbing Sarah and pulling her behind the heavy oak sideboard for protection. Daniel lunged for Lizzie and her children, dragging them behind the sofa as Patricia scrambled for cover behind an armchair. Alexander's transformation was immediate and complete. Gone was the polished financial advisor, replaced by a highly trained operative, moving with practiced efficiency. He pulled a compact handgun from an ankle holster and tossed Ellie's purse to her from the nearby table. Your Glock, he said tersely. I know you keep it there. Without hesitation, Ellie retrieved her weapon, checking it with the same calm precision she displayed at the shooting range. Stay low, move to the kitchen, Alexander instructed. There's a team of at least 4 outside. They must have been tracking me, waiting to see if I made contact with the family. Who are they? Michael demanded, his face pale but determined as he shielded his wife. Sentinel's cleanup crew, Alexander replied grimly. They're not here to negotiate. Another burst of gunfire shattered the remaining windows, sending glass shards flying across the room. Lizzie's twins were crying, their faces buried against their mother's chest as she tried to comfort them while fighting her own terror. The basement, Ellie said decisively. The entrance is through the kitchen, and there's a reinforced storm shelter James insisted on installing when we renovated 10 years ago. Alexander nodded approvingly. Of course there is. James would have prepared a safe room. Everyone moved toward the kitchen. Stay low. Use the furniture for cover. Ellie led the way, crawling beneath the window line with her gun held ready. The others followed, a strange procession of terrified family members who had gathered for Sunday dinner only to find themselves in the middle of what felt like a war zone. In the kitchen, Alexander positioned himself near the entrance, peering carefully around the corner to monitor the attackers' movements. They're spreading out, trying to surround the house. We need to move quickly. Ellie pulled open the basement door, revealing a steep staircase leading down into darkness. Patricia, take the children down first. Daniel, help Lizzie. Michael and Sarah, you follow. What about you? Patricia asked, her usual commanding presence subdued by shock and fear. I'll come down with Alexander. Ellie replied with a calm that surprised even herself. Someone needs to secure the door from this side. As her family descended into the basement, Ellie positioned herself beside Alexander, her gun held steady in a proper 2-handed grip. You're remarkably composed for someone who just learned her husband was an intelligence officer, and she's the target of professional killers, Alexander observed quietly. I've had 3 years to grieve James. Ellie replied, learning the truth about how he died doesn't change my loss. It just redirects my anger. And I've always been good in a crisis. It's why I made an excellent teacher. A shadow moved past the kitchen window, and Alexander fired twice in quick succession. A muffled cry suggested he'd found his target. We need to go, he said, backing toward the basement door. They'll regroup and come in hard. The wounded one will just make them more aggressive. Ellie nodded, following him down the stairs and securing the heavy door behind them. At the bottom, Alexander quickly assessed the basement space, nodding with approval at the reinforced storm shelter set into the far wall. Everyone inside, he directed. This shelter will hold against anything short of military-grade explosives. The family crowded into the shelter, a 12-by-12 room with concrete walls, stocked with emergency supplies, a small bathroom, and communication equipment. James had insisted it was necessary protection against the tornadoes that occasionally threatened their region. But Ellie now understood its true purpose. Once everyone was inside, Alexander sealed the heavy door and activated what appeared to be a simple alarm panel, but revealed itself to be a sophisticated security system. "Communications jammer engaged," he announced. "Their phones and radios won't work within 50 feet of this room. And this," he pressed another sequence of buttons, "will alert my support team. Backup should arrive within 20 minutes. "You have a support team?" Michael asked incredulously. "Did you think I was protecting your mother alone?" Alexander replied. "We're a small unit, former intelligence and special forces, all personally vetted by James before his death. We've been monitoring Ellie since the funeral, making sure Sentinel didn't make a move against her." Lizzie was holding her twins close, trying to keep them calm despite the extraordinary circumstances. "How long will we need to stay down here?" "Until my team secures the house and confirms all threats have been neutralized," Alexander said, checking his weapon and spare magazine. "The local police will respond to reports of gunfire, but they're not equipped to handle this type of tactical situation. My people will coordinate with them once they arrive." Ellie watched her children struggling to process this new reality. Patricia sat rigidly on one of the emergency cots, her legal mind clearly trying to fit these events into some rational framework. Michael held Sarah's hand tightly, his protective instincts fully engaged. Daniel paced the small space, running his fingers through his hair in a nervous gesture he'd had since childhood. Lizzie focused entirely on her children, using their needs as an anchor in the storm of revelations. "I'm sorry," Ellie said quietly. "I had no idea any of this was happening. I thought Alex was just helping me manage money James had left me. I never imagined—" "It's not your fault, Mom," Daniel replied, surprising everyone with his vehemence. "We're the ones who should apologize. We were ready to have you declared incompetent because we couldn't see past our own assumptions." Patricia nodded slowly, her composure beginning to return. "We should have trusted you. Instead, we decided you were losing your mind because you talked about someone we couldn't see and money we didn't know existed." "In your defense," Alexander interjected, "I deliberately made myself invisible to you. Part of my security protocol was to ensure no one knew I was meeting with Ellie. If Sentinel had been watching, they would have seen an elderly widow taking her regular morning walk. Nothing more." "But why reveal yourself now?" Michael asked. "Why expose Mom to this kind of danger after keeping her safe for 3 years?" Alexander's expression turned grim. "Because Sentinel is closing in. 3 weeks ago, they made their first attempt to access Ellie's financial records through a compromised bank employee. We intercepted it, but it was clear they were getting closer. Then we detected surveillance on her house, not your amateur efforts." "Patricia, but professional operators." Patricia flushed with embarrassment at the reference to her surveillance operation. "The final warning came yesterday," Alexander continued. "One of our team identified a known Sentinel assassin checking into a hotel 3 miles from here. We were running out of time and options." "So, your plan was to tell us everything and then what?" Daniel asked. "Move Mom to a safe house. Put her in witness protection." "The plan was to bring you all into the truth so you could help protect her," Alexander replied. "James built an airtight case against Sentinel, but the evidence needs to be properly presented to the right authorities, ones we know aren't compromised. Patricia, your law firm has connections to the Justice Department's Financial Crimes Division. Michael, your insurance background gives you the skills to identify the patterns in the financial data. Daniel, your accounting expertise is essential for translating the evidence into terms prosecutors can use. And Lizzie, your work in community organizing has given you contacts in local government that we might need." Ellie looked at Alexander with growing understanding. "You didn't just reveal the truth to protect me. You need my children to help complete James's mission. Your husband spent 30 years building a case that could bring down one of the most dangerous criminal organizations in the world," Alexander confirmed. "His final wish was for his family to help finish what he started, but only when the time was right, and only if you chose to do so freely." Before anyone could respond, a series of short beeps came from the security panel. Alexander checked the display and visibly relaxed. "My team has arrived and secured the perimeter," he announced. "The attackers have retreated, but we need to move quickly. This safe house has been compromised, and we need to relocate to a secure facility." "What about our lives?" Lizzie asked, gesturing to her children. "Their school, my job, all of our responsibilities. For the next 72 hours, your safety is the only priority," Alexander replied firmly. "After that, if you choose not to participate in completing James's mission, we'll establish new identities and security protocols that will allow you to return to modified versions of your current lives." "And if we do choose to help?" Patricia asked, her legal mind clearly assessing the implications. Then we move to the next phase, using the evidence James collected to build a case that even compromised officials can't ignore or suppress. Alexander explained, it would mean temporary disruption to your normal routines, but the potential outcome is justice for your father and the dismantling of an organization that has corrupted governments and financial systems across the globe. A knock at the shelter door interrupted their conversation, 3 short raps followed by 2 longer ones. Alexander checked the security monitor, then entered a code that released the locks. The door opened to reveal a tall woman with short gray hair and the confident bearing of someone accustomed to command. Perimeter secure, sir. Transport is ready when you are. Thank you, Commander Reyes. Alexander replied. Family status, all present and unharmed. Ellie answered before anyone else could speak, her voice steady and clear. And ready to move on your order. Alexander and Commander Reyes both looked at her with newfound respect, recognizing the natural authority in her tone. James always said you were the real strength in the family. Alexander noted with a small smile. I'm beginning to see why. As they prepared to leave the shelter, Patricia approached Ellie with an uncharacteristically humble expression. Mom, I don't know what to say. We were so wrong about you, about everything. You were trying to protect me, Ellie replied, touching her daughter's cheek gently. Your methods were misguided, but your intentions weren't wrong. Now we protect each other as a family. Moving through the basement and up the stairs, they emerged into a kitchen now secured by Alexander's team, 4 operators in tactical gear, positioned strategically throughout the house. The living room showed the devastating evidence of the attack's shattered windows, bullet-riddled walls, and splintered furniture. My home, Ellie whispered, taking in the destruction of the place where she'd raised her family. We'll rebuild it, Michael promised, putting an arm around her shoulders. Better than before. Alexander led them through the house to the attached garage, where 2 nondescript SUVs with tinted windows waited with engines running. Mrs. Thompson, you'll ride with me in the lead vehicle, he directed. The rest of you will follow in the second vehicle with Commander Reyes and 2 of my team. We'll take separate routes to the safe house as an additional precaution. As they prepared to depart, Ellie looked back at the home she'd shared with James for over 3 decades. Despite the damage, she could still see the memories embedded in its walls: children's birthdays, holiday gatherings, quiet evenings with James by the fireplace. It had been a happy home, filled with love and laughter, even if it had also been built on secrets and hidden truths. We'll come back, Alexander said quietly, reading her thoughts. When this is over, you'll rebuild your life on a foundation of truth rather than necessary deception. Ellie nodded, squaring her shoulders as she turned toward the waiting vehicle. James kept secrets to protect us. Now, we use the truth to protect each other and finish what he started. The safe house was a modern compound, nestled in the wooded hills 60 miles outside the city. A sprawling main building surrounded by smaller structures, all protected by state-of-the-art security systems and Alexander's team of professionals. As they settled into the main conference room, Alexander activated a secure projection system that displayed a complex network of connections between companies, individuals, and financial transactions. This is what James discovered, he explained. Sentinel's entire operation, mapped over decades of patient investigation. The red nodes are compromised government officials. The blue are financial institutions involved in money laundering. The green represent legitimate businesses used as fronts for illegal activities. The family stared at the visualization, trying to comprehend the scope of what James had uncovered. There are cabinet secretaries on this list, Patricia noted, her legal experience helping her recognize the implications. Federal judges, intelligence officials, banking regulators. Sentinel's influence extends into every major power center in the country, Alexander confirmed. That's why conventional law enforcement channels have failed to stop them. The watchdogs have been compromised. So, what's the plan? Daniel asked, his analytical mind already focusing on solutions rather than problems. How do we use this evidence effectively if so many officials are corrupted? Alexander smiled slightly. That's where James was brilliant. He created what he called a sunlight protocol, a method to release the evidence simultaneously to multiple outlets, from legitimate law enforcement to media organizations, with verification systems that would make it impossible to dismiss or suppress. But he never activated it, Michael observed. He was waiting for the final piece, Alexander explained, turning to Ellie. A connection that would link Sentinel's leadership directly to the criminal activities, something that couldn't be explained away as the actions of rogue employees or plausibly denied. Did he find it? Ellie asked. We believe so. In the weeks before his death, James indicated he had obtained definitive proof linking Sentinel's CEO, Richard Hargrove, to direct orders for illegal operations, including political assassinations and market manipulation schemes that crashed entire national economies. Lizzie, who had been listening quietly while keeping her children occupied with tablets and headphones, looked up sharply. Richard Hargrove, the philanthropist, his foundation funds half the community programs in the city. Respectability has always been the best cover for criminals operating at this level, Alexander noted. Hargrove's charitable work provides both positive public relations and useful political connections. If Dad had this smoking gun evidence, where is it? Patricia asked. It should be in the financial records you've been managing, right? Alexander shook his head. That's the mystery we've been trying to solve for 3 years. James indicated the evidence existed, but it wasn't with his other files. It wasn't in any of his known dead drops or secure servers. He hid it somewhere special, somewhere he believed would be completely safe. All eyes turned to Ellie, who sat processing this information with remarkable composure. You think James hid this critical evidence somewhere only I would know about, she said slowly, somewhere meaningful to us. It's the most logical conclusion, Alexander confirmed. He wouldn't risk hiding it anywhere Sentinel might search, which would include all his professional locations and storage facilities. It would need to be somewhere personal, somewhere that would seem insignificant to anyone but you. But Ellie closed her eyes, mentally walking through her home, considering all the special places that held meaning in her relationship with James. Their favorite reading nook by the bay window, the garden bench where they'd spent countless summer evenings, the antique desk where James wrote birthday cards and anniversary notes. Suddenly, her eyes snapped open. The wooden box. What wooden box? Alexander asked, leaning forward with intense interest. James had a wooden box he made himself in our first year of marriage, Ellie explained. He kept it in his nightstand drawer and said it contained his most precious possessions. After he died, I couldn't bring myself to open it. It felt too personal, too final. Alexander exchanged looks with Commander Reyes. Is the box still in your house? Ellie shook her head. I moved it to my safety deposit box at First National about a month after the funeral. It seemed too important to risk losing in a house fire or burglary. A safety deposit box would be perfect, Alexander said with growing excitement. Secure, private, and completely disconnected from James's professional life. Sentinel would never think to look there. Patricia frowned. But wouldn't they be monitoring Mom's activities by now if she goes to the bank? Won't they follow her? Yes, which is why Ellie won't be going to the bank. Alexander replied. At least, not as herself. Commander Reyes stepped forward, opening a laptop to display a series of identification documents. We've maintained alternate identities for Mrs. Thompson since your father's death, just in case they were needed. One of them has access to a safety deposit box at First National, established 3 years ago during routine contingency planning. You created fake IDs for my mother, Michael asked incredulously. They're not fake, Commander Reyes corrected. They're fully backstopped alternate identities with legitimate documentation. Mrs. Thompson is also Catherine Mills, a retired librarian with a modest savings account, a leased apartment, and a safety deposit box at the same bank where Ellie Thompson keeps hers. Ellie looked at the identification documents with amazement. James arranged all this. Your husband was exceptionally thorough in his contingency planning, Alexander confirmed. He wanted to ensure you had options if things went wrong. So, tomorrow morning, I go to the bank as Catherine Mills, access her safety deposit box, and somehow switch to accessing mine instead. Ellie asked, trying to understand the operational approach. Not exactly, Alexander explained. Tomorrow morning, Catherine Mills will enter the bank while a small incident distracts the security personnel. During that distraction, she'll access not her assigned box, but Ellie Thompson's box, using the key you'll provide. Our technical team will loop the security camera footage during the critical moments. Patricia's legal mind immediately identified the problems. That's multiple felonies, identity fraud, bank fraud, tampering with security systems. Yes, Alexander acknowledged without apology. It's also our best chance to recover evidence that could bring down a criminal organization responsible for dozens of murders, including your father's, and financial crimes that have harmed millions of people worldwide. A tense silence fell over the room as the family confronted the reality of their situation. They were being asked not just to accept that their father had led a double life, but to actively participate in activities that crossed legal and ethical boundaries they'd never considered breaching. Lizzie was the first to speak, her voice quiet but determined. Dad spent his life working to stop these people. If breaking a few rules is what it takes to finish what he started and keep Mom safe, I'm in. Michael nodded slowly. These people shot up our family home. They would have killed us all without hesitation. We're well past worrying about technical legalities. Daniel looked at his siblings, then at his mother. I've spent my career following rules and regulations. It's strange to consider breaking them now. But for Dad, for justice, yes, I'm in too. All eyes turned to Patricia, the lawyer whose professional identity was built on upholding the law. She sat silently for a long moment, her internal struggle visible in her expression. Patricia, Ellie prompted gently. They were going to put you in a home, Patricia said finally, her voice thick with emotion. We were going to have you declared incompetent, take away your independence, all because we couldn't see past our own assumptions and prejudices. We were so certain we knew what was best for you. She looked up, her decision made. If I could be that wrong about my own mother, I can certainly be wrong about where the boundaries of justice lie in this situation. I'm in. Ellie looked at her children with pride swelling in her chest. Despite the danger, despite the moral complexity, they had chosen to stand together as a family and honor their father's legacy. James would be so proud of you all, she said softly. Now, let's finish what he started. Alexander nodded with approval. We'll begin preparations immediately. Commander Reyes will work with each of you on your specific roles for tomorrow's operation. But first, there's one more thing you should all understand. He turned to the projection system again, displaying a new set of documents. James left letters for each of you, to be delivered only if his true work was ever revealed. They're personal messages, separate from the operational details. I think now is the appropriate time for you to read them. As Commander Reyes distributed the sealed envelopes, each bearing a child's name in James's distinctive handwriting, Ellie watched her family with a mixture of sorrow and pride. Their lives had been irrevocably changed by the revelations of this day, their understanding of their father transformed by truths long hidden. But in those changes lay opportunity as well, the chance to know the real James Thompson, to understand the full measure of his courage and commitment, and to help complete the mission that had defined his life's work. Alexander moved to stand beside her as the children opened their letters, each lost in private communication with the father they thought they had known. Are you all right? He asked quietly. This is a lot to process in one day. Ellie nodded, her eyes clear and determined. For 3 years, I've mourned a man I thought I understood completely. Now I realize there were depths to James I never knew existed. It's painful, but also strangely liberating. I'm not just the widow he left behind. I'm the partner he trusted to carry forward his most important work. He always said you were the strongest person he'd ever known, Alexander replied. I didn't fully understand what he meant until today. My children thought I was losing my mind, Ellie said with a small, ironic smile. Instead, I'm finding parts of myself I never knew existed. At 64, I'm becoming someone new, someone stronger and more determined than the woman who taught high school English for 30 years. She looked at her family, each absorbed in their father's final words, and then back to Alexander with renewed resolve. Tomorrow, we retrieve James's evidence, and then we make Sentinel pay for what they did to him and to us. Alexander nodded, recognizing in her eyes the same unwavering determination he had so often seen in her husband's. They never should have underestimated you, Ellie. That was their first mistake, and it will be their last. As night fell over the safe house, the Thompson family prepared for a battle they had never expected to fight, guided by the invisible guardian who had watched over them for years, and the enduring legacy of a man whose greatest achievement was the family now united in his cause. Eleanor Thompson, mother, widow, and now warrior for justice, stood at the center of it all, no longer the confused elderly woman her children had pitied, but the formidable force James had always known her to be. Their lives would never be the same. But perhaps, Ellie thought as she watched her family planning tomorrow's mission, they would be better founded on truth rather than necessary lies, strengthened by shared purpose, and dedicated to completing James's final mission together.